Hi, hello, and welcome to Explainwallah, the exclusive section launched by LearnStroke IAS classes by Arjun. And yet, today we are discussing another important topic of the Delhi Ordinance issue. And the newspapers are being flooding about the ordinance, recent ordinance released by the President of India. And the important key players that are coming here is the Delhi government, and on one side you have the ordinance of the President, and on the other side you have the Supreme Court of India. And all of this is actually relating to one important thing, is regarding the inclusion of services. Who will have the rights, authority and the power to make rules and regulations regarding the services? Because Supreme Court of India already gave a clean verdict that Delhi government, Delhi Legislative Assembly will have the power to create laws and manage for all the important aspects regarding services, the Indian Administrative Services, Joint Cadre Services. On the other side, the President of India promulgated another important ordinance and surprised and shocked all the people when it said that it negated and nullified the verdict of the Supreme Court and said that Delhi will not have the power to make rules on services and many other important acts. So in this context, what will happen to the Government of National Capital Territory of Delhi Act 1991 and the important sections relating to that, and what is the constitutional provisions and legal issues arising out of this? Can President of India's ordinance nullify or contradict the Supreme Court of India judgment? Let's find out all this answer in Explainwallah. Before we go on to the important issue, so we need to understand what is ordinance in basic. An ordinance is a law that is promulgated by the President of India under certain important circumstances. And one of the important circumstances is that when he or she can implement or impose and create an ordinance when both the houses of the parliament are not in session. So parliament is not in session, or the President of India feels that there is a very specific circumstances where you need to create a law where you cannot wait for both the houses of the parliament to come and sit together. So in certain circumstances, President of India can actually promulgate an ordinance as a law. So in this case, we already know what the ordinance said, and we should also, let's analyze the Supreme Court's view. So according to the Supreme Court's view, it said that the legislative and executive powers regarding the handling of services like Indian Administrative Service and Joint Cadre Service should be given to Delhi, because the National Capital Territory of Delhi, it is actually included within that circle. So every day there is actually day-to-day administrative challenges and administrative issues. So in order to have a better administration in progress, definitely the powers of legislative and executive actions on services should be given to Delhi. So that is what Supreme Court ultimately said. So I'll give out the important rationale of the Supreme Court. So number one, it said is Article 239AA Clause 3A, which specifically said that the Legislative Assembly of Delhi will have all the power to make laws regarding everything that is enumerated and included in the state list and the concurrent list, except three important things, which is police, public order and land. So except of police, public order and land, the Delhi Legislative Assembly has powers to create laws on the state list and concurrent list. And hence, the Supreme Court said Delhi has the power to include services or make laws for services. So if Delhi has got this power, definitely Delhi can have the power of including making laws on services. And the same verdict was already given by the Supreme Court in 2018, and now recently the Supreme Court even affirmed or upheld the same statement again. But let's see what is the power of the ordinance. In many of the cases, it has been said that the main question that we have to also analyze is whether a presidential ordinance will be able to nullify the existing Supreme Court verdicts. Because in previous Supreme Court's various judgments, the Supreme Court has also very clearly said that no parliament, because parliament does not have the power of judiciary. Parliament does not have judicial power. So in any of the cases, parliament should not nullify or negate the verdicts of the Supreme Court. So Supreme Court very clearly said about the parliament here. And what does the ordinance say here? The ordinance simply said whatever the Supreme Court of India, whether the verdict be anything, the ordinance says it very clearly. They added something called as Section 3A into the new GNCTD Act, which is the Government of National Capital Territory of Delhi. The new GNCTD Act, they inserted 3A, and it said whether Supreme Court says it or not, it is not a concern, but the Legislative Assembly of Delhi will not have the power to make laws on anything that is enumerated in entry 41. So Delhi will not have the power to do anything in entry 41, which is also including services. You cannot do anything on that. So that is what simply the ordinance said. Apart from taking away the Delhi government's powers, what are some of the important aspects or the changes that the ordinance has brought in? So there are a lot of curious things that the ordinance has brought in. So let's discuss one. The most one is important is regarding the postings, transfers, and the disciplinary actions of the civil servants. So now it clearly says that it is actually entrusted to an important agency called as the National Capital Civil Services Authority. So all the postings, transfers, and disciplinary actions of the civil servants will now be entrusted to the National Capital Civil Services Authority, which will be actually conducted by an important 3-member team with a chairman and 2 other important members, and the chairman being very interestingly being the Chief Minister, the elected Chief Minister, and the other 2 members are bureaucrats. One is the Chief Secretary and another is the Home Secretary. So this has brought in a lot of debate, because on one side you should know that Chief Minister is just kept for the sake, and the 2 important members are the Chief Secretary and the Home Secretary, which are bureaucrats, who are bureaucrats. So the important decisions regarding all this will be taken by the bureaucrats, and then it shall be given for the Lieutenant Governor for the opinions. So just imagine, so a lot of critics are actually of the opinion that Chief Minister, the elected Chief Minister, has actually lost value in this. How can bureaucrats take decisions and give opinions and pass it on to the Lieutenant Governor for approval and opinion? So the role of Chief Minister is actually taken away. So this is what a lot of people think, and what is your opinion on that? So this is one important aspect that should be noted. And what are the important other curious provisions? And one of the important curious provisions is regarding the importance of the position of secretary. And second is regarding the summoning and proroguing of the legislative session. So let's take the first. The secretary has got more power. That means secretary has now the power to even review the cabinet, because secretary to the Council of Ministers forms an opinion. If the secretary forms an opinion that the cabinet is not functioning as per the rules or the procedures, the opinion formation of the secretary, at that point of time, the secretary, after forming the opinion, can directly intimate the Lieutenant Governor and tell him about this. So that means the secretary can now review the working of the cabinet. So do you agree with such a provision? And second is regarding the summoning and proroguing of the session. By all parliamentary conventions and parliamentary system, you clearly know that it is always the cabinet that makes the ultimate decision to convene a session. And you know that the governor does that after taking the advice from the Council of Ministers, which is normally always headed by the Chief Minister. So the governor does not have any power, and the governor cannot exercise his or her power according to the opinions that he or she has and convene an important meeting. He or she will always have to take the consent of the council ministers headed by the Chief Minister. But this time, according to the new ordinance, what is important is whenever you want to convene a new session, the important decision or the important thing comes from the Chief Secretary. The Chief Secretary shall actually do it and give it to the Lieutenant Governor, and also the opinion of the Chief Minister is taken. So this is something which a lot of people have disagreed to. A lot of people constitutionally believe that this is not the right thing, because the cabinet, the Council of Ministers headed by the Chief Minister, the elected Chief Minister, should be giving the directions, and the governor should actually be coming on that line. But now Chief Secretary's position is being given in separate power. So by this, the complete session, you must have read that the ordinance is trying to give more importance to the Secretary, Chief Secretary, Home Secretary. That means bureaucrats. And one thing that you can notice, the power of the Chief Minister, the power of the government of Delhi regarding the executive and the legislative actions is actually, it is actually trying to take away. So this is what the important critics are saying. So what is your opinion is also very important. I think in the coming days, a lot of issues will be unfolding in this matter. But the key important questions that we are asking again is, can Parliament or any other body, like even the President of India's ordinance, nullify, negate the powers or the verdict of Supreme Court? So what is going to be the status of Delhi government, and what about Article 239 AA, the special status? What is going to be Delhi status is going to be something that we have to see in the coming days. So I think you understood all the important ideas. So keep listening to Explainwallah by LearnStroke IAS classes by Arjun.